The Oakland Post is Oakland University's student newspaper, and joining us now is their editor-in-chief, Michael Pearce, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate having you on. How are you? How have you been? How has the pandemic been going for you as a student?
It's been interesting for sure. I mean, I think it really honestly brought our staff together a lot because we all sort of had something really meaningful to talk about and cover, so that was a really positive side effect. A negative side effect, though, is that we had to really slow down on printing any summer issues or anything, and when we do resume that, we're going to have to produce a lot less, obviously, because there's just no one around right now. So it's been very interesting. It's been a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative, but overall, it's been a pretty worthwhile learning experience, I'd say, for all of us.
Especially for the young journalists in your operation, really in new journalism, new people in journalism, in any outlet. This is one of those times where it's such a great crisis, and there's so much going on. There's so many different stories, so many different angles. That's a really great trial by fire, I would think, to learn how to do effective reporting and people-based reporting on stories in the local area. Is that the case with you and your fellow student journalist at the Oakland Post?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the times when you're writing stories at a college, university, it can get a little monotonous with some of the things you do because there are very important topics to touch on, but a lot of the times some reporters will just be doing a lot of event coverage and event recap and stuff like that, or a lot of reviews or profiles, depending on what section they're in. And to have something that's really impactful for many people, and we're bringing in more traffic, I would say, because they're very important topics and everyone needs to know about it. It gives those younger journalists, especially, like a bigger sense of purpose, and it really makes them feel like their work is worthwhile. And I think that's been something that a lot of us have felt during this. It's like, wow, people are really reading what we're saying, and they're grateful for the coverage that we're providing.
Michael Pearce with us. He is the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. Michael, your thoughts on what we've also been seeing, not only in the coronavirus pandemic, but even before that. There's been a bit of an anti-journalist rhetoric in the United States going on for several years now, especially with the rise of fake news and claims of fake news. What are your thoughts and your fellow journalists' thoughts on that? Is there any concern for you and for your fellow student journalists going into this industry with a little bit of the bad rhetoric that's being thrown your way?
I say that there is some concern, but I also feel like over time that will correct itself because, the current president will be the current president forever. You will have different leaders who impact the masses, with different opinions of journalists, and I think eventually it'll flow back and forth, sort of an ebb and flow type of thing. I personally am not entirely worried because, especially now, I feel like Gary Gilbert has said this before, but the coronavirus pandemic has really sort of renewed the trust in journalists a little more than the previous couple of years. So I think the gradual change of opinions has swayed a little bit back in journalists' favor with this national health crisis. So I think it was a really down time, but a lot of people are learning how to do better journalism, and consumers are also learning where the best journalism comes from. So eventually I think this will correct itself, and good journalism will shine through. So some people are more worried than I am probably, but I believe that if you just do the best work possible, it'll shine through, and people will trust you. So.
Michael Pearce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post. The Oakland Post, of course, is Oakland University's student newspaper. As we're in the times that we're in right now, it used to be maybe that people would go into journalism and say, okay, I want to be a news writer. I want to be a TV news reporter. I want to do news radio. Now you got to kind of be able to do a little bit of everything, and you take into account social media as well, which has become really huge in reporting, especially breaking news, but also on keeping people updated on stories. As student journalists, how much of an emphasis do you put on reporting over social media, both accurately and timely, as you're bringing these stories to people that they need to be hearing?
Yeah, that's a very important aspect. We we went through that a lot with the initial coronavirus news in March with, classes being shut down, people being moved off campus, everything like that, and even the subsequent news that broke after about the future of the 2020-21 school year. And social media was very important because we were among some of the first people to really get the news out there about classes being canceled and, the housing changes. So using that, our Facebook and Twitter and everything was very important to helping inform the students and their families. We had a comment on one of the stories that was thanking us for putting it out there and sharing it so quickly because they were looking for this information about their daughter, about what happened to her housing, and they found it through us. So using those platforms is very important for us to help inform students, especially because that's a lot of what they're on, and that's where a lot of the students view stuff is through social media. They see it on Facebook, Twitter, and they view it through a mobile browser. So it's very important to stay as active as we can on those platforms while still keeping active facts and active journalism.
Michael Pearce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. And you learn a lot reporting on stories like this, as there's so much new news coming in each and every day. It's always something different. It's always of differing severity, maybe, Michael. And learning from telling stories in this context where it's so important to get the information right and to be pointed but not necessarily worrisome to the audience, how does that help you going forward as a journalist prepare to tell other stories that maybe are a little bit lighter or maybe even are somewhat more severe going forward?
Yeah, I think having so much pressure to get all of the facts correct is actually a beneficial thing. It makes everyone work, I would say, a little harder and check things a little bit more, and that's a great thing. For stories that are less important, it reminds us that even the smallest details can be make or break. As simple as the year something happened, or a certain spelling of someone's name, it can really change a reader's opinion of us. So getting those serious facts are very important, and we see that now more than ever. But it also reminds us that every fact is important, so we need to use the same sort of attention that we put on the serious facts, like the information about classes being canceled, as just spelling someone's name. We have to put the same dedication into that as we do everything.
Michael, going forward, how is the newspaper, the student newspaper, the Oakland Post, going to be different as a result of the pandemic?
It will be different for sure. I think we might cut back on print issues, but other than that, I can't see much else changing because we do put such an emphasis on online stories as well. But at the same time, Oakland will still have a lot of people on campus, so we might still be producing a lot of print issues as is. A lot of people, professors and everything, really like the print issues as well. So for us, not a lot changes. We don't put on a ton of events either. So honestly, it's kind of business as usual at this point for us.
Michael Pearce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. Michael, there's still some... The fall is still unclear. We don't know what's going to happen with the coronavirus. We don't know how this pandemic is going to progress forward and how it's going to affect everything down the line. As of now, what are the plans in terms of the Oakland Post's reporting for the fall semester, being that school may be on campus, maybe off campus, or maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, as of right now, we're looking at a little bit of both at Oakland, and our priority is definitely going to be developments with the virus and developments with the future, because things are always subject to change. That's one thing we've learned through this entire process these last, 4 and a half months or so. Everything is subject to change. So I think we're going to have an increased responsibility to be flexible and to be quick. So we have to prepare that at any moment something might change and something might come up. Just yesterday, I wasn't planning on writing anything about this, but yesterday the Horizon League, the league that Oakland competes in, announced that fall sports will be postponed until at least October 1st. So in that situation, I have to be flexible. I have to jump in and immediately start reporting on that. And that'll change priority of things as well, because for the first month of school, we won't have a ton of sports stuff going on. So more priority will be given to campus news as more developments come. So it's really just being flexible and doing whatever we need to do to get the news out there as fast as we can and as accurately as we can.
Michael, anything else you'd like to touch on today? Anything else that's important for us to know before we let you go?
Not that I can think of. I'm just really proud of the staff these last 4 months, even when I wasn't editor-in-chief. Our previous editor-in-chief, Trevor, did a great job leading us, and I feel like it renewed a little bit of my faith in journalism, honestly, seeing everyone come together like they did. So I just wanted to give a little shout-out to the Oakland Post staff.
Well, we thank you very much for being with us today, Michael.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Michael Pearce, the editor-in-chief for the Oakland Post.